Let me welcome everyone. I am Joan Yates. I am one of your hosts here from the Water Center. You'll see some blue backgrounds in some of the boxes. We are your folks from the Water Center. And so my colleagues from the Water Center here are Sherry Marlin and Tracy Benson, Danelle Hogan, Mary Quinnen, and I think that's everyone that's here from the Water Center. So we are very happy to welcome you here to this open studio session this month, our last one of 2023. And we're particularly happy to be hosting this global audience and this global session. We wanted to end the year with a big bang, and we decided the biggest bang would be to open it up to the entire world. And we usually have a world audience, and we decided to have world facilitators. And so we reached out to some of our colleagues from around the world. And these are all folks that we have worked with. And so we were so happy when they said that they could join us from their various time zones around the world. And so we have today, as you saw when you signed up, that we have our colleagues from, and I'm going to introduce them in the order that they will be presenting today. We have Hans, Leistra, and I will just be butchering their names, and the guys know this. We did a run through last week, and I said, I'll try your names. And then when you actually present, you can give your names the due that they deserve. Hans will be presenting the work that he and his colleagues have done in the Netherlands with the Dutch version of the work and the habits. And then we'll go from the Dutch version to the Italian version, and Rocco Scolozzi will be presenting the Italian version of the habits and the work that they've been doing. And then for the Spanish work, we'll have David Fayad, who is coming to us from Colombia, and David gave us a little wave there. And then we'll be ending up with coming to us from Turkey, Emre Göktepe. I know I just ruined that, Emre. So, you know, you can correct me there. And Emre, as I said, has been doing work for many years in Turkey, and Sherry shaking her head because Sherry has gone a couple of times to Turkey to work with Emre and his colleagues there. So the format will be that these four gentlemen will cycle through in the order that I said, and they'll each spend about 10 minutes sharing their work. And then at the end, that'll leave us like 15 minutes or so where you can just pummel these guys with questions that you have about the work that they've been doing. So if you can, you know, write down your questions as they're presenting, that would be great. If you have a question where you just don't understand exactly something they said, put that in chat, and the guys know that I may interrupt them with just a content question that you have where you didn't understand something maybe, but otherwise leave your questions till the end. Okay, that's the format that we agreed on. Any questions before we start? Okay, I will let Hans start out with sharing, and take it away, Hans.
Okay, thank you, Joan. Okay, well, hello, my name is Hans Leistra. I'm 57 years old. I live in the town of Sittard, and that's in the Netherlands. I work as an educational consultant, and together with two colleagues, I run a company that's called IRIS. I will briefly explain to you what IRIS stands for using the letters. The I stands for inspiration. It's our belief that all learning begins with this. The R stands for relationship and connection. We think that you learn yourself, but you don't do it alone. And we facilitate team learning in schools. The next I stands for interdependence, which is the systems principle. I think I don't need to elaborate on that further. The S stands for serendipity. It's good to learn goal-oriented. That's what we do in the Netherlands. But it's also good to be open to what comes towards you on your way, even if this means a small detour, because sometimes the detour turns out to be still the shortest way. The last letter is Z, which stands for zijn in Dutch. And in English, that means being or identity. And this is what all learning leads to, namely becoming who you want to be in the world. Okay, this is who we are. I go to slide 2. And slide 2, I will take you to 3 different contexts in which we apply the thinking habits of a system thinker in work and private life. And the first context is the children at school. I will briefly discuss 2 applications for primary school students. And second context concerns a leadership network that I supervise. This is a regional network of principals from primary and secondary schools. They meet 5 times a year at a location outside school where leadership themes are discussed, where intervision takes place, where developments in the regions are considered, and where solutions are devised for dilemmas in educational practice. And finally, I want to share how the thinking habits help me beyond the fuss of the moment in the Netherlands to connect people under polarizing political circumstances. Well, and I move to slide number 3, and what you see here is kids in school, and I will start on the left. You see there kids in schools. I hope you can see it a little bit. You can see here children at work, and years ago when we started teaching system thinking in schools, we noticed that the thinking habits of a systems thinker are a very accessible tool. You don't need to have a prior knowledge. You read the question on the card and you are in the system thinking mood already. So we have noticed that it's good for younger children to gather some images of what the thinking habit is, how it can be used, and when it's useful. So we have noticed that creating a thinking habit wall is a useful tool for this. Children collect images, examples of a thinking habit, and fill a wall with it. Each time a different thinking habit will receive explicit attention in class, so that children become familiar with working and using the thinking habits. As we see, as we look at the right, you see a different example. And last year I started working with children in the 6th grade at a school in this area in which I live. The school works with project, and this time it was the turn of the Sustainability Week, and the students wanted to investigate whether biofuel was a sustainable energy source. Well, we started with the image of 2 people, one of whom is hungry and the other one is thirsty. And using the thinking habits, the big picture changes perspectives, considers consequences, and system structures creates behavior. They researched the place and time horizon and discovered that the need for sustainability on one side of the world can mean a lot of unintended consequences on the other side of it. A good outcome was that while the exploration initially led to a fierce position against biofuel, the final conclusions were much more nuanced. Students agreed that biofuel was not a sustainable solution for the energy problem, but that it might be sufficient for the time being on our way to a better solution. So this application is an example of how 6th grade students learn to deal with real-life dilemmas through thinking habits. It's fair to say that the current focus on achieving learning outcomes in schools in the Netherlands means that attention to system thinking and particularly to learning the specific language of it is declining. This, to me, seems very paradoxal, because system thinking is the ideal means to gain insight in the system and the results it creates. So that puzzles me. Okay, the next slide, that's what you can see here is a network of principals that gather 5 times a year at, as you can see, a nice location outside of schools. And the thing they do is discuss leadership issues, unfold complex dynamics in schools, focus on what's happening in the region, learn from each other, cope with their dilemmas, and sometimes even find levering actions in their work. So how I use the system at the habits cards here is I don't use them every time, but once in a while I will use them to discuss leadership issues. And what I do is, since the cards are on the website in Dutch language, I text all the principals the link to the website on their phone, and advance of the issue approach, I ask them to log in on the website and go to the thinking habits, pick a card, listen to the story of the issue. So there was one of the principals talking about his issue. He would do that for a minute or 5, and then we started a round of questions, and everyone who chose a card would address their questions from that card. So that would be the input. And after 20 minutes of asking questions to the person who was the one with the issue, we started a team gossip. And I don't know if you know how that works, but that means that the one with the issue only listens and takes notes of what's being said. And the other people in the room are gossiping as if he were not there. So they are testing hypotheses, they are spelling mental models on the question, they are giving advice, and it's a bit of a rubbish, but it's very helpful and creative. And the next step is that the one with the issue looks at his notes and gives feedback on the group on what was helpful to him and what he can use in dissolving his issue and handling that. And the last step of this approach is a wrap-up, in which we see how the questions and the different perspectives and cards has helped to gain deeper understanding of the issue and how it works. And that's fun. It's a fun way of dealing with leadership issues. Okay, and then the last slide, that's the most complicated one. So, as you know, I assume, we recently had elections in the Netherlands, in which Geert Wilders was declared the big winner, and his party is extreme right, and this has led to a political landslide in the Netherlands. The elections results immediately led to polarization. The day after the elections, I was at school for a language education. This is a school where children come from asylum centers. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that are the people, the immigrants from all over the world who try to get asylum. And those children, this is the first actually a connection to the Netherlands and the society, learning the Dutch language before they go to school. So I wasn't at school, and that day there were those teachers that were in shock because of the result of the elections. But while 1 on 6 Dutch people voted on Geert Wilders, there also were people who'd vote on him, and those people did not know how to behave towards each other. And that went in a day. Day before there was nothing going on, and the day after they really were puzzled. At another school, 2 history teachers got in a discussion because one wanted to discuss the outcomes of the elections in class and make it an object for learning. And the other one did not dare, and they had a discussion about that. The days after the election, there were more arguments and racist comments on schoolyards, as if the election legitimized this behavior. So, and knowing it was 1 out of 6 Dutch people who voted extreme right, I have to take into account that people in my circle of friends, and perhaps even in my family, also made this choice. So I was very puzzled, and I thought how to behave. And actually, I did not know until I went to that school for language. And I thought of the habits, and especially the habits of meaningful connections and system structures creates behavior, helped me to continue to see connection between people on a personal level, from relative to relative. We had our birthday parties already, and I noticed there were some discussions about politics, but also from colleague to colleague and from classmate to classmate. And I hope and I believe that if we persist in seeking the personal connection, that after some time this will enable us to create a bigger we again. So this is how these cards help me, and this is what I wanted to share with you. I hope it was a bit insightful, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer after the other presentations.
So thank you so much for sharing, Hans. And you did get in the chat that loved a couple of hearts, that people loved the whole team gossip idea. And I saw people shaking their heads and smiling when you were talking about the team gossip idea. That was really people, that really resonated with people. So I'm sure you'll hear about that afterwards. So thank you so much, Hans. And now we go on to Rocco, who will share work that he and his colleagues have done with the Italian habits.
I start with a great thanks for the support from all the water center staff, from Tracy Benson, Romy Banks, and Jan Hayes, that and Mary Queenan, that followed me, that advised me during the course. Because as we see, you can see my slide. Okay. And host the work in Italy with the cards started in 2021 with my colleague Stefano Menia from a local Italian association dealing with system thinking, the Italian chapter. We translated and also made an agreement between this Chirality Water Center and SIDIC. And then when came the cards, the tangible cards, suddenly I applied in schools, in trainings. The first occasion was about trainings for the trainer, so dealing with responsible heads, manager of schools. It was called School of System Thinking. With Verso is still a network of schools, association, cooperatives that work on the territory of Verona in northern Italy. And yes, we involve educators, teachers, social workers, school leaders, and manager, using the several approach and games, activities that I learned during the training from the water center. The first feedback was really enthusiastic. All the participants found really useful, really inspiring the cards. Then I use in summer school, in experiential school training in the mountain, summer school of system thinking that this year's will be the 4th edition, in which I use as a transactional object, as a training object, a training tool. Along the days is 5 days as residential training, and also this. And also I applied habit system, the cards in the schools, in pilot experimental applications. One in this picture we can see and a project at the middle school level in a really small village experiencing depopulation. So we use system thinking to visualize, to orienting in a project about the futures, their futures in the valley, because it's not granted. So my future in the valley, 2035 in my career and satisfied. And they resonate, they use the system thinking habits to visualize the context for their desirable futures. So we bridge future studies, future literacy, and system literacy. And another application, another occasion in which I merged these two topics, futures literacy and system thinking, autumn school of participation, dedicated to high school, so professional and vocational specific. And was also another interesting occasion was involving schools in a participatory process about the provincial sustainable development strategy. I involved 13 schools, and they use system thinking to visualize, to think about desirable future and strategy to go there, to reach there. And you can see the influence sphere, influence circle, what can we influence, we cannot influence, and the causal loop diagram between different options in looking at, in search for synergies between solutions and to avoid adversary, as accidental adversary. And the last work, this last occasion in which I applied, I used the card was group coaching. There were 2 cooperatives. There was a merge, and so there was problem or difficulty in terms of collaborating with different colleagues, with different group in a new organization emerged by 2 previous. And so coaches was social assistant, psychologists, educators, and I use habits of system thinking cards with another couple of approaches that I found really synergistic: solution focus and anticipation dialogue. And use the cards also in the preparation about interviews. We use the behavior over time graph to conduct, to guide to conversations with coaches, with the stakeholders in this project. How is the story of design practice? Design of individual integrated intervention was the main topic for their also objective, how to improve collaboration for design individual integrated intervention. And I also use merge another tool from Tom Eric Arnkill, Anticipatory Dialogue. Is about a dialogue about future perspective, that could be resume in one sentence how to remember the future. So there is a typical 3 question. jump into the future and remember the future, what happened in the desirable future. 1 year has passed, things have improved. What are you particularly happy about? So it's a positive option, positive perspective. And what did you realize? What did you do to realize this positive development? With who? Who helped you? So this dialogue involving a system of collaborations, activations. And the third was born a year ago in the present, and what has alleviated your worries? So these 3 questions guided the process of preparation and also the conduction. And the group coaching was a meeting every 15 days approximately, along 4 months, in which in each meeting we have taken into consideration a couple of habits and their application in the daily work. So the group was about reflection, debriefing about the application, the difficulties or potentials about using these habits cards in their project, in their collaboration, in their new reality. Okay, and so on. And feel.
Wow. Wow, way to speed right through and give us a whole lot of examples and content in there, Rocco. That was fabulous. Thank you so much. That was great. And I'm sure, yes, you see Tracy clapping her hands there. That was, yeah, yeah, that was fabulous. And I'm sure that your example of the anticipation dialogue, it was like that was the first time I'd ever heard of that. I'm going to have questions about that one. So thank you so much for sharing. So we'll go on now to Spanish and have David share what he and his colleagues have done with the habits and the work with systems thinking in Spanish. So David, take it away, please.
Thank you very much, Joan. I also would like to thank everyone for the invitation. I think it's a great opportunity to share with everyone. Can you see my slide now? Okay, so I am David Fayad. I'm the Director of Learning at Colegio Bolívar, which is a bilingual international school located in Cali, Colombia. And this picture shows you not only the cards in English, but you also see the set of habits underneath the other one. This is a lake nearby. So before I actually talk about where and how I've used the cards, I wanted to emphasize a little bit the importance of this work that the Water Center has done in terms of translating all these tools, because we are really talking about spreading the gospel, really taking it to the different ends of the world. And if you do it in people's native languages, obviously you're going to reach many more people. The message is going to be clearer, stronger, and the work is going to be more effective. So I'm going to start with a few pieces of information about Spanish, just like to put things in perspective. So most of you know that Spanish is widely spoken, but when you see it from the perspective of being native speakers, is the second most widely spoken. Because if you think of Mandarin, yes, millions of people speak Mandarin, but it's not necessarily their native language. The same happens with Hindu. It's the most spoken of the Romance languages, more than French, for example. And is second most used in the internet, which I found that actually the third most used in the internet. Many times we think that Spanish is only used in Spain and in Latin America, but you can find it also in Africa and in Asia. the fact that there are 21 Spanish-speaking countries in the world and many more that have a significant Spanish-speaking population, is like, okay, maybe we should do some more work in Spanish. And many of you are based in the United States. This is the second country with the largest number of Spanish speakers in the world. So anything that we can do, not only in Spanish, but as I said at the beginning, in different languages, will really help us in actually, having more impact with this work. Okay, so my context, as I said, I work in a bilingual international school. We have all kids from 18 months to 18-year-olds. So it's the whole process and the whole spectrum. The fact that we're accredited internationally means that we have to meet the standards not only for our Colombian Ministry of Education, but also for Cognia, which is the largest accrediting agency in the world. So that really determines certain things for us. This is our population of students. Very important to see that even though we call ourselves an international school, is more because of the curriculum that we use than because of the population that we have. The great majority, almost all our families, are Colombian. And that also takes us to the importance of having tools and using tools in Spanish as well. Our faculty is mostly Colombian. That 25% is mostly North American, primarily from the United States. But from the 75% of Colombians, we have a significant population that speak both English and Spanish, but another group that only speaks Spanish. So we really need to make sure that we're meeting their needs in their mother tongue. So, se habla español a lot here at Colegio Bolívar. In terms of the work that we've done, I want to make reference to 3 specific contexts. From the perspective of strategic planning, we recently designed a new strategic plan based on the previous one, all sorts of indicators as most organizations do. But I wanted to highlight the work that we've done with the iceberg and really going into more depth in terms of the mental models that the different stakeholding groups have actually kept in mind. So we did this with teachers, parents, students, faculty, employees, alumni, board of trustees. Every single group had a chance to actually go into what are those mental models that we have in terms of what the school has been and what the school should be. And really unearthing all those perspectives was extremely helpful when actually designing the plan and coming up with what were those specific intents on which we were going to focus. So for us, it was very enriching to have these conversations with focus groups and to feel that we had the representation of every single stakeholding group was very significant, because then we could actually say, okay, based on these findings, this is where we're going. So that's just one of the examples. In terms of the work that we've done with the leadership groups, I wanted to highlight this habit of surfacing and testing assumptions. And in that, we really have used it in terms of, looking at that ladder with different groups also, with some of the decisions that have been made in relation to that plan. So for example, to feel that we could implement the plan the way we wanted to, we had to open up some time to really focus on these initiatives that will help us. So we open a time every Wednesday afternoon. And so it was very important to see, okay, what was the perception that people were having about this new space that we had created? What were some of the beliefs and some of the actions, and really start analyzing them, again, using the cards in Spanish with all groups, and be able to analyze that feedback, and based on that, make adjustments along the way. A third area is in coaching. I work with, we have 4 sections in the school, meaning 4 principals: pre-primary, primary, middle, high school. We have a superintendent. So I'm kind of like central office type of position. And I work with a team of coaches that work with all sections, and we work with all principals and all teams of teachers. And in doing that, we really have used this habit of considering short-term and long-term and unintended consequences of actions. So we have analyzed some of the decisions that we've made in terms of coaching. And for example, we realized that an intended consequence that was evident to us now was that by having some of the coaches work with groups, we were creating some dependency, and the groups weren't as autonomous as we hoped they would be. If the coach wasn't there, then nothing would happen. So we became very aware of that, and then we asked the questions to the different teams, and also we used the cards with those Spanish speaking teams about, okay, are there those unintended consequences in the decision that we made? And through that analysis, we're able to make some important adjustments. I also want to briefly mention another line of work. Tracy was asked if we could do something with a university in Bucaramanga, which is another city in Colombia. It's closer to the border with Venezuela. And she very graciously invited me to join her. And it was great to have the cards handy, because even though the group of professors with whom we interacted had a certain level of English, when we started talking about the habits more specifically, the fact that, Tracy gave them the access to the web page, and they could actually see the cards in Spanish and the questions in the back in Spanish, was very helpful to them in being, totally aware of what we meant by them. So again, I really feel that it's crucial to be able to use these tools in Spanish. Muchísimas gracias. That's my email address in case there are questions that cannot be answered at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Gracias. And again, you saw David put in his email address, and remember, this slide, this recording will show up on our Water Center website, so you'll be able to reference that. All these presentations and slides that you've seen will be on our website. So thank you. Emre, turning it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to, okay. I prepared a video recording, so it might save some time. After that, I'll be ready to answer any of your questions. Thank you for inviting me to this event. I want to share our experiences in our effort to infuse systems thinking into the Turkish K-12 education system. Before starting, I also thank Water Center for being the initiator of systems thinking in K-12 education in Turkey. All of the work I will try to share started with 1-week workshops from the Water Center in 2015 and 2016. I'll try to relate each slide with habits. These are limited to my knowledge and different relations can be found. Starting with change over time, it can be read as follows. The habit of change over time determines what will accumulate. Accumulation requires reasoning about how things accumulate, which elements of the system affect each other and cause changes in accumulation. Thus, by working on accumulations, connections between the elements of the system are found. The relationships that form loops between these connections form interdependencies. Thus, considering issues fully is realized. Considering issues fully combines with one's mental model to understand the structure of the system. Thus, on the one hand, one can see the big picture, realize one's assumptions, and change one's mental model. On the other hand, understanding the structure of the system leads to the realization of possible delays and, consequently, the short and long-term consequences of the system. By considering the short and long-term consequences, the leverage points of the system can be found and measures can be taken. The measures taken cause a change over time in the desired direction by ensuring progressive approach to short and long-term results. Now our experiences. Systems Thinking Association is a non-governmental organization founded in 2016. The association currently has 70 members from different areas. This is a stock flow diagram showing how we picture our strategy. You can read this diagram starting from right. Our ultimate objective is to increase systems thinkers ratio in the world. This can be done by enabling 4 couples of flows, namely from non-ST students to ST students, from non-ST teachers to ST teachers, from non-ST pre-service teachers to ST pre-service teachers, from non-ST academicians to ST academicians. We plan to achieve these long-term goals in 3 phases: infusion into schools, infusion into universities, infusion into curriculums. This actually is a simple model of an infectious disease or diffusion of an innovation. All we are trying to do is to increase contact and infusion fractions. For increasing contact fraction, that is, the number of teachers and academicians exposed to ST, the most important enabler is accessibility. This can be done by publishing all content online. And this content should be free of charge, and mentoring, that is, any kind of consulting about the implementation, should also be free of charge. This has a very simple explanation. If we can give high-quality content and mentoring for free, we set the level of quality, we set the standard. We avoid competition that might undermine the very quality that systems thinking deserves. A sustainable and energy-efficient but patience-demanding way to do is working with volunteers. But these volunteers should be volunteers in real terms. A sure way to filter real volunteers is to ask for their unpaid times, the times they allocate for doing work without expecting a return. Of course, if there is such a time, but if there isn't, then this means that this person does not qualify to be a volunteer. Such a group of volunteers having a shared vision of developing, implementing, and improving will also be the guarantee of the content quality, which brings us to the second enabler of infusion fraction. Another important factor of infusion fraction is teacher-orientedness of all work being done. The focus should always be on teachers. This is especially important when working with academia. All academic work should have a practical value to the teacher. A sure way to do is to use current lesson plans. This way, minimum load is applied on teachers' already very busy work schedule. Each adaptation should include at least one of the 3 systems thinking tools: behavior over time graphs, stock flow diagrams, and causal loop diagrams. This is our ever-changing plan. It plans 40 years. The first 2 years are planned on a monthly basis, the next 6 years yearly, and the next 2 decades are by decade. We are updating this plan after strategy meetings, of which we are trying to do every year. These are the major activities we are trying to accomplish. We conduct training, develop resources, and share the experiences of teachers in symposiums. Most of the work we had done is shared in symposiums. They are organized by support of schools implementing systems thinking. In addition to sharing the experience and creating interest for teachers that have not implemented, the symposium also acts as a medium for creating connections between teachers, academicians, administrators, and association members. Since 2018, we have been sharing our experiences in international events. Most often, these presentations are made in international system dynamics conferences organized by System Dynamics Society. Some members of the association are in the leadership team of the Society's pre-college education special interest group. The activities of the group is another medium where we find an opportunity to share our experiences. Working with teachers is the first phase of the project. With the experience we gain from this phase, we proceed to the second phase, working with the universities. After teaching our first master's course at the Faculty of Education of an university, we decided to write a textbook. After completing the book, we printed it with the support of UNDP. We are sending it to academicians who we think might be interested. Apart from this, we also write book chapters, support the courses offered by academicians at other universities who are members of the association, and facilitate masters and doctoral students of whom these academicians are advisors. This is the last slide. I want to end this presentation with words inspired from Isaac Newton's words. If we have dared to try this, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. We are very grateful to the giants of the field. We greet them with deep respect. Thank you for your patience. Yes.
Emre, thank you for recording the video ahead of time. I'm wondering if the video itself can be made available to people, separate from it being embedded in this video, because I know some of it was a little blurry.
Okay, I can do that. Actually, I'm going to share the presentation, and within the presentation, you can reach the speaker notes, and in the speaker notes, there's a link for the video.
Oh, fabulous. If you want to put that link right in the chat, then people can get that. I'm sure people would appreciate that. Fabulous. Thank you. Okay, so that's great. Thank you guys. Thank you, Hans, Rocco, David, Emre, for sharing all of this. We have 10 minutes now for people to ask questions of these gentlemen while we have them. So questions on, raise your hands, raise your hand or put the little hand symbol up. Don, I see your hand. Go ahead, Don.
Yes, I'm curious for everyone. Do you find that systems thinking is universal? Have you had to make adaptations to the habits cards, change how they're framed or how they're worded in order to align with more local contexts?
Anyone
I
of you
think
guys?
that's a great question, Don. And I have thought about it because we are very aware of cultural differences in our context, because we have to deal with that every day, and we have not only to meet the needs but also anticipate, and I would say that they are very universal. And sometimes things are a little lost in translation, and translations are really hard. And sometimes it's like, okay, I would phrase it better this way than the way it is translated to kind of like add to the comprehension. But for the most part, it really helps in the work to see it as universal. Yeah.
And there's thank you, David. Anybody else want to answer that question, Emre?
Well, may I share my screen and show in our website? It will be in Turkish, but so these are the parts that habits are listed, and these are the habits, the real ones. But working with a couple of kindergarten teachers, we deduced them to one sentence that those kindergarten teachers thought it will be much easier for a kindergarten student might understand, but they're in Turkish, of course. I think you may do some adaptations, but the essence is quite the same for all.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
Joan, there was a question in the chat from Jose.
Yes, right. I just wanted to see if anybody else had an answer to that question, and then I was going to direct you to the question in chat. So David, do you want to address the question in chat? How do you see cultural aspects coming into play when it comes to training, learning? That is, can cards used by native Spanish speakers in Calais be used by native Spanish speakers in Tucson?
Yeah, I think it's very, very much related to Don's question. And so if we say they are pretty much universal, then also it would be okay to say that they can be used in different contexts in Spanish. Again, there might be some subtle differences in terms of translation, a word meaning something a little different from, Tucson to Cali to Mexico. But for the most part, I think the questions in the back, all these other elements really make it easy to fully understand the concepts behind it. So I would use them, yeah, in different contexts, no problem.
I will tell you, Spanish was our toughest translation, and you think, oh, you're in Tucson. Spanish should be the easiest translation. No, for exactly what you're saying, David, because you have, in the United States, East Coast Spanish, or you have Spanish in Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic, which is, like what, and then you have Spanish in Mexico, and you have Spanish in Spain, and you have, so it makes it very difficult when we asked people to do the translation. It's like, oh no, it's way not that simple for Spanish.
I'll just reiterate that too, Joan, because, we've done work in Honduras and Colombia and Costa Rica and Mexico. And, with STEM stuff, it's particularly challenged with drinking straws. That's one that has a different term that are sometimes completely different from country to country and place to place. So it's challenging, but it's great to hear from David that, in this case, because it's not so much lengthy language, that it's pretty universal. So that's good to hear.
Yeah. And then there's also looking at chat, as I'm monitoring chat, Kelly says, love that, would love to see an English version for young children. And when we very much started out, there's a school in Tucson, Borton Primary Magnet School, that we did a lot of the work with, and that a lot of the work originated from, and we consulted with those teachers. It was a primary magnet school in the beginning, where they taught pre-K through third grade, so up through like 8-year-olds. And we asked them, we said, should we do a version for the little people, is what I like to call them, the youngest little learners. And those teachers said, no, let's start with the pictures and no words, and have the picture, think Rod Stewart, every picture tells a story, don't it? And introduce the cards through the pictures, and have the picture tell the story, and then introduce the words of the habits to the children, and go that way, and not have the habits be really word dependent, but picture dependent. And then the children develop their own words to go with the pictures. And so they said, no, you don't need to do separate words. We'll let the children develop their words from the pictures. And so we didn't develop a separate set, but that was just where we were at the time. Thank you, Kelly. That makes a lot of sense. But again, that we left it up to the teachers of the young people. So anyway, somebody had their hand up. Oh, Martha. Okay. And we have just 3 minutes. I know we could go on and on with this. So I really want to thank the guys, take this time to thank the guys. These, I call them my Fantastic Four, as I've worked with them. And I also want to say that we will not be having we usually have the open studios the first Thursday of every month. We will not have one in January because it would be like January 4th and people will still be in, like some people will still be in holiday mode or on vacation. So no open studio the first Thursday in January. And then we will be back in February. So look for that. So happy holidays, no January open studio. Thank you guys. And go ahead with what your question was. And Tracy put a comment in chat and we're still in chat. I heard a 4-year-old define leverage as it's finding easy way to do hard things. We've seen young children, okay, using Rod Stewart quote in conversation. Okay, so thank you. Okay, I'm glad I could help you there, Jose. And Martha.
Do you find that the people using the people around the world, a question for all of you, do you find that there's any indication of any individual student or cluster of students who are showing indicating some kind of propensity or attraction to one or other of the 25 cards that are there? I'm thinking, is there one kind of thing that, oh man, this one was really working for me, this iterative one, or another, oh wow, I really want to work with this behavior over time card? And is there any, or do you specifically not want that to evolve and be some kind of clue as to what's going on in their individual minds?
Is there a favorite, guys? You know, have you found people have a favorite?
Or cluster of favorites?
So Joan, we have a video of that question was posed to young, it was in a middle school, so it was 12, 13, 14-year-olds. That was from Gridley Middle School. And I think it's on our website, so I have to look, but it's that question was, what's your favorite habit and why? And their answers were all over the place, everything from big picture, leverage, I think unintended consequences. So yeah, I'll see if I can find that and post it.
And what about you guys with your work in the Netherlands? What about you guys in your work around the world? Any favorites?
Yeah, I can't name a favorite. I think the big picture is one that includes the others a bit. So if you are seeking for the big picture, it's what I said, you are seeking for time horizon or place horizon, and so then another things come in that are quoted on other cards. So for me, the big picture is one that's always there, but I can't actually tell if there is a special one. I don't know.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, well, we're 1 minute past the top of the hour, so thank you everyone for joining us. We are definitely better together, and thank you guys for being here. I did have a thank you slide with all of the languages, but I have no idea what happened to my slide deck, so I'm sorry I don't get to show that. But definitely a thank you to everyone for being here, and a big thank you to all of you gentlemen for being our facilitators and our guides to the world. habits in the world. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you in 2024.